Gay legends, welcome to the Pot Noodle on Celtic Down Under. I'm your host Jared, and joining me are Liam and Shane. How you going, Liam?
Good, good. I think this is my first show since I became a full-time Hunscalper, isn't
Pretty much, yeah.
it?
You could have names on the screen. It would say like Shane, whatever, be professional beard grower. It'd be like me, Yobbo, and it'd say Liam, Hunsculper extraordinaire.
An occasional treasure hunter. Anyway, so yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I just a wee bit of a house cleaning here. I just want to acknowledge, last week I did write an editorial in which I described Rangers fans as a bunch of cousin courting mutants. I don't want to apologise for it. I just want to acknowledge it. I said that it happened, and I stand by it.
Facts, 100%. And how you going, Shane?
I'm good. It's good to be with you, fine gentlemen, again. It's been a few weeks since I've been on, but it's funny Liam's kicked off like that because I was just about to talk how I've been indulging in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, and Liam's leading into it beautifully with some of that material. Got to see the always funny Jenny Tien on the weekend and followed it up with a show by a gentleman by the name of Tom Armstrong, who I'd never seen before, and it was a room of about 10 people, and honestly, it was absolutely hilarious, like knock your feet off funny, and I highly recommend checking him out. It was a throwback to sort of 90s and 2000s growing up in Australia, and it was absolutely awesome. So Tom Armstrong, check him out.
So in other words, Shane, it was humor where actually you were allowed to laugh at it. You weren't supposed to be offended. You were just laughing at it instead of, oh, I'm going to cancel you. So it was that.
Mate, it was a throwback to a time gone by that you and I would know very familiar, the time of cheese TV and things like that, which I'm sure you'll get, but probably the rest of the audience won't.
Google it. That's all I'm going to say to the rest of you is Google it. Go down that rabbit hole. You know you'll want to.
I mean, in fairness, I'm surprised I didn't get cancelled last week for a blog where I likened Neil Doncaster and the SPFL negotiating the TV deal to Ned Beattie and Deliverance,
Liam, jeez, man. I'm looking at this going, okay, hang on. 2 more minutes. Yeah. 2 more minutes. Don't make me have to hit a dump button.
I didn't actually say what happened in Deliverance, and I would encourage you not to Google it. Right.
I've got a guitar in the corner. I don't have a banjo, mate. I can't help you.
All I'm saying is those hillbillies, right? There's Burt Reynolds in his prime, and they choose Ned Beattie. What is going on with that? Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. So I'm just going to bring up a comment here to start off with. So Smell the Glove is saying, "G'day troopers, is this a new time for the Monday Pot Noodle?" This is pretty much back to the normal time for us over here when we're off daylight savings. So I think what's happened is in the UK, they come off daylight savings. There was like a week difference where it was, instead of it being, so it's normally 9 hours difference. Then when it got up to 11 hours difference, and now it's just, then there was a week where it was 10 hours and now it's back to 9. So we're back to our normal sort of time slots again. So yeah, it actually, I don't know, nothing's changed from our side. It's just the clock's different everywhere. So yeah, this is where we'll be for the rest of the season at least. So yeah, hope it works for everyone. Tune in, get involved, and yeah, we'll get into the comments a bit later on with about the game and everything, because we're about to dive into all of that. But just before we do that, I just want to, do a little. I know we're going to get when we get to the game, the language is going to fly out. You can guarantee it. So I'm just going to try and pad a bit for 30 seconds or so here. So normally I would say our social media channels at the top of the screen, give them a like, follow, whatever. But for one, I want to do a little different. So it's freezing cold in Melbourne tonight. So I went and dug out the old Celtic Down Under hoodie. So jump onto our website, celticdownunder.com. Get yourself one of these hoodies if it's cold. Get yourself some T-shirts. The show's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just, so if anyone loves what we do and you want to jump on and show some support to the podcast. If you can, I know funds are tough. Grab a polo, grab a T-shirt, grab a drink bottle. If you can't, just like the video, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, we'll just keep growing it from there. So yes, we got to the safe zone, so now Liam can cut sick when it comes to the game. So happy days.
Let's get this game out of the way so we can talk about those fucking inbred mutants at Ibrox. Right, okay.
So
we were safely over the 5 minutes when I said that, so we're good.
100%. So the thing going into the game against St Johnstone, and what irritated me the most leading into it, right, was I see that starting lineup, and I'm like, other than Schmeichel and Scales being in the matchday squad, that's the strongest squad we have available. So I went into this game thinking, yep, we get an early goal, we'll comfortably give them a doing. As Willie just said in our group chat about half an hour ago, if that game was still being played right at this exact moment now, it would still be 1-0. And he's spot on. I don't know who it was. If the goal was the size of the Titanic, yeah, the Titanic would have made it wherever it was going safely. There's no way we would have even hit the thing. So it's just a disgrace. Like the starting lineup, obviously, we'll go through that. But yeah, it was Sinisalo in goals, Schlupp, Trusty, Carter Vickers, Johnson. Midfielder for Tade, Engels, McGregor. Up front, Dazen with Kun and Jota either side of him. Bench had Taylor, Eder, Yang, McCowan, Forrest, Naroski, Bernardo, Bain, Ralston. So, realistically, really strong squad. And I just want to get your view, Shane. What was your thoughts when you saw that starting lineup, and what do you think going into the game?
Well, I kind of echo your sentiments really when you mentioned it in the group chat about how that looked like probably not just our strongest starting 11, but our strongest squad, really. You could, minus, of course, Schmeichel for Sinisalo. But having the likes of Forrest on the bench, which was a welcome sight to see again. And yeah, you look at that squad and go, right, we're on today. This is a really good team. And, you pretty much echo exactly what you said again in terms of the actual match and how we expected it to unfold. We get an early goal. We're right on top here. We've got the 3 stands full at McDermott Park. We're here we go. We're on. And I expected much, much more than what we saw, particularly in that first 45 from that squad.
And Liam, how do you think? Anything different, or you in agreement?
No, I totally agree. We should have absolutely wiped the floor with St Johnstone yesterday, but credit to them. They'd obviously done their homework. They approached that game in a very similar way to, I think, the way Rangers approached the latest derby, as in be physical, be solid, and defend like crazy, and you might get lucky. And they did. And I can't really argue with it. They deserved it. They, like I say, did their homework. They knew exactly where and how to hit us. We look unbelievably fragile at set pieces. And yeah, I can't grudge them the win at all. And do you know what? I hope they stay up, because a team with that level of bravery deserves to be in the top flight.
Well, let's look at that level of bravery. Well, have a look at their manager, rocking the Ellen DeGeneres type haircut and both different earrings and everything like that. I think someone said in some group chat I'm part of that it looked like the male version of a lesbian couple managing them. So absolutely, like the fact they went out there absolutely fearless and just played and were physical, like they deserved the result 100%. Like I'm not taking anything away from St Johnstone. They took their chances. We didn't. Their goalkeeper was unreal. Like Fisher was man of the match for me. Normally I do that at the end of it, but he was just best player on the pitch by a country mile. And they knew when to be dirty. They knew when to mix it up and foul. They knew what dark arts they could get away with. But as you said, Liam, they were physical. And we'll talk about formations and playing style and all that later on in the pod. But in general, yeah, they came out and they did all the 50-50s. They were there. And in the first half, Shane, there was a perfect example of that. Couldn't go and in the back post. All he has to do is get his boot to the ball, and he's putting the ball in the net. And what happens? They clear it.
They step in and clear it. And I think not to be too harsh on him, but it seemed to also sum up our performance in that first half, because he seems to just hesitate. I feel like if he's on top of his game and the game's unfolding and we're playing at the level that we expect, he's probably already at the back post tapping that in. But he sort of caught on his heels a little bit, and then he sort of makes a play for it, but they're already there. And it kind of highlights what you and Liam were talking about. And I agree with Liam's comments. All credit to St Johnstone, because they really applied themselves very well. They were threatening from set pieces. We got an early warning before they scored. They knew when to get stuck in. They put everything on the line. And they deserve that 3 points. I think in the end, had we jagged a goal, had it actually finished 1-1, it wouldn't have been an undeserving result. I think we'd done enough in the second half to earn a point, but credit to them for walking away with all 3 points. I don't have any criticism of them at all, really.
And that's going to give them, like, we play them again in 2 weeks' time in a cup semi-final at Hampden. That's going to give them the spring in their step they need to come in and think, oh, we can get a result here. We can get through to a cup final. They'll actually come in thinking that now because of this result, and good on them. They deserve to think that way after the result we just played. Like, the biggest issue in this game, and Brendan touched on it, and we're going to talk about it a little later on as well, is our mindset. That's what I think our biggest issue at the moment is. But overall, a general chat about the first half, Liam, like what we do, for me, I just think in general, it was slack. We were found wanting. They were the team that if there was a 50-50 there, they got to it all the time. And when you outwork someone, you make your own luck, and then you start to get just those 50-50s go your way, but you also get the 50-50 calls from the refs. We had 3 stands, but their crowd was louder in the first half at patches. Like, yeah, so I don't know. What was your general thoughts? Anything else about the first half?
That was a team fighting for their lives, and it showed. We were a team that think we've already won the league, and it showed. I think that you if you look at those 2 elements, that kind of encompasses the entire game. It was St Johnstone had to win. Celtic didn't seem that bothered if they won or not. And that is a problem. It's not a problem now because we will win the league in the next, it might be next week, it might be in 3 weeks, whatever, but we will win the league. My worry is next season. If this malaise carries on into next season, we're not going to get into the Champions League. I think that the Huns are going to get some kind of investment this summer, probably. Not earth-shattering, but enough that they will improve on what they've got just now. And at the end of the day, they beat us in January, and it put them 13 points behind us. Right now, despite having arguably the worst record in their 13-year history, they're still 13 points behind us. So that speaks to how bad we have been since New Year. And we will not win the league next year if that level of form continues. That's a fact.
All right, Liam, let's just jump on something that you've said there because I was going to talk about it a little bit later anyway, but we'll jump onto it right now. Last 15 games in the SPFL, the team with the best records are out of 45 points. Hibs are in first with 15 games, 35 points, and they've had 29 goals for, 12 against. Second is us, 31 points. So we've dropped 14.
Yeah.
44 goals, 17 against. And then you've got the Huns in third on 30 points. So they've dropped 15. So realistically, like, I know there's this mindset where we as fans think, okay, we shouldn't lose to anyone within Scottish football. And with the players we have and everything, we shouldn't, right? But there's also that thing like saying like in boxing, they've got a puncher's chance. And we saw that exactly yesterday. St Johnstone got the early goal. That was a Jose Mourinho special. Get an early goal and just sit there and defend for your life. And they had their puncher's chance. They took their chance early. They got their goal and then they shut up shop. And as I said earlier, if we were still playing now, we'd still be 1-0. So, yeah, it's just one of those ones for me where I look at it and go, we have not been of the standard that we expect our team to be at. And some people say it's entitlement. Other people say it's, that's how it should be. And it's a bit of a toxic environment out there. You go and watch some post-match podcasts out there, whether it's the usual suspects. I'll just go there. I've been on 3 or 4 of them today, and the comment sections are absolutely all over the joint. So, yeah, it's a bit of an awkward one. But first half goal, Shane, like, they took their chance. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, like I said, just prior to the goal, we'd had a warning shot from a free kick and a set piece routine, which they put over the bar, right? Liam already mentioned just how fragile we look from set pieces. From memory, we gave away a pretty soft free kick. Really disappointing foul to give away. It's the centre half at the top of the box. Name escapes me. I think it's Belotus or Belotus. He's completely unmarked. He makes a run into the box. No one tracks him. For all intents and purposes, it's a free header. And, you're talking about the puncher's chance. They took that chance. They saw we were vulnerable from set pieces. They loaded up on it like most teams do against us when they try and sort of get that goal and then sit back, and they did. And it was a pretty well worked routine, but very disappointingly defended from our point of view.
Yep, definitely was. So what we'll do is we'll bring up some comments, and then we'll get on to some more. So Heavy Vibes was saying, how boys, well, that was a gutless showing. Sell Rio and wave goodbye to Schlop in the summer. We'll talk about the individual players a bit later on, boys, so we won't dive into that on the comments. But yeah, it was gutless. McLaughlin saying, usually after a defeat, I'll hit out with some stats to make it look a bit better, but I'm not even attempting that after the shit show we had to endure yesterday. Do the same. McLaughlin's also saying, here's a stat. We lost one domestic game in 2024 in the calendar year. 14 weeks into 2025 now, and we've lost 4 domestic games. That shows the drop-off we're talking about.
Yeah.
And he's also come up saying, haven't won 5 games in a row since October, going into November either.
Is it just me, or is this season kind of the inverse of last season? Because last season we started off pish, then we came good after New Year. Whereas this year, we kind of had the title in the bag by Christmas, and we've been not very good since. It's strange.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Then we got Smolder guy saying, hoping Brendan is serious about changes in the summer. Heavy Vibes is saying, I think it's a mistake letting Taylor go.
Possibly. Depending on who comes in.
Jerry Burns is saying, that was a shocker yesterday. I didn't see that coming.
Yep.
And then Smell the Glove is spot on here. Our squad is too small now, Pat. Like, too many know they're guaranteed to start with no proper challenge.
Yes.
And it's too small on multiple fronts there, Smell the Glove. It's too small in terms of numbers, squad numbers, and it's too small in terms of height. It's like we've got a team of Shanes playing instead of a team of me and Liam's. We need a couple of 6-footers out there to just clatter people. Like, we just seem too small and we get pushed off the ball. And there was one of their guys, Sidibe. He just kept pushing guys, like leaning and bumping guys off the ball. And he was outpowering CCV. When do you see that happen? You don't. So, yeah, it's just a bit interesting. But, yeah. We've got a comment here from McLaughlin saying, Rogers is previous when it comes to alienating players and losing the dressing room. We'll dive into that later on. And then we just keep scrolling through here. The set piece things. When we defend set pieces, I cover my eyes. When we get set piece, I don't bother to even watch. We never score.
That's a very telling point.
Who was the last set piece player that we had in our team, honestly?
Lee Griffiths.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
You see someone step up to a free kick and you're like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen.
Haksabanovic had that in his game as well, but he didn't have much else, unfortunately.
Henrik McLaughlin. Too soon to attend, mate. Never. So we'll just keep scrolling through. What else have we got?
I think just to step in for a second, we give them, you guys have said it, we give them a lot of credit for their application and their intensity, particularly in that first half. But we were so flat, we didn't create anything. Like, that was the thing. We played at a tempo that wasn't conducive to not only our football and our best football, but good football in general. Everything was slow. There was no dynamism. I've never seen I can't remember the last time I've seen Maeda so isolated, particularly since he's sort of taken on more of that central striker role. And it wasn't even a chance. It wasn't even a case of we didn't score or we didn't, take our chances. We didn't create any chances to take. it was a really poor first half. And, I know we'll get into what Brendan says a bit later, but unfortunately, it's a bit of a pattern.
Well, on that, Shane, like I said at half time, the thing is, we've got to speed up our play. And the other thing is, they were getting their defence back and we were recycling the ball. So what I saw a lot was Jota in the first 20, 30 minutes was wide open. And if we got him the ball, had our eyes up and looked up, we could get him the ball and he can go one-on-one with their fullback. Same with Kun. But what would happen? The ball would go to the middle. We'd have our head down. We'd pass it back to a centre back. We'd then reverse, recycle, go the other side. And by that point, there's like a fullback and a defensive mid blocking it and doubling up on our wingers. So then we had to recycle it again, and it was really slow. Get it, touch, hold. Where's the player? Where's the space? Push, and go forward. And it was just ridiculous. Like, we need to play quicker. We need to know where the space is. Teams know how to attack us. We should know how to attack these teams. Teams are going to sit deep. And St Johnstone weren't sitting as deep as most other teams we play. So there was definitely space there to get at them. The goalkeeper helped them a lot, but we didn't help ourselves either.
It's funny you mentioned Jota because I thought, there weren't many positives in the first half. I thought he looked good. He probably had our best chance. He looked the most likely to actually get us on the score sheet or make something happen. We just couldn't get him on the ball, as you were saying. Like we just couldn't get the ball to him or get him on the ball to actually make things happen. And that was so noticeable. Whereas in the second half, which we'll get into in a second, he seemed to get on the ball a lot more.
Yep. Liam, you got anything to add?
No, not really. Scunnered. That's pretty much it.
So, yeah, just scroll through. So, Brendan Rodgers was clearly pissed off at half time because how early he was out on the pitch at half time compared to the players was you don't see that very often from him. So, you can only imagine how bad the hairdryer treatment he gave the boys was at half time. Come in and make a couple of subs as well. Come in, tell them that was pish, blast a few of them, make some subs, and get on with it. He didn't look like a happy camper at all. Second half, overall, I just thought it was a bit better. Speed was there. We got some shots, but the issue I found as well was we seemed reluctant to take a man on. And then when we did eventually do it, there was another defender behind him because we took too long. But then, Rio hit a post. He had a shot that went over the top. There was one that he shot that ended up in Inverness about 3 hours after the game. Landed up there. Our shooting boots just weren't on. But we had enough chances that if we took, say that Kun goal in the first half, and if we took half the chances we made in the second half, we could have won that 2 or 3-1. So the game was still there to win. But, as we said earlier, St Johnstone deserved that result. I don't think there was too much more to talk about in the second half unless you, Shane, want to jump on something, anything in particular?
Well, I think there was I think we were definitely better in the second half, but there was a noticeable difference between the first half problem and the second half problem. In the first half, we weren't creating any chances. The second half, we were actually creating quite a few chances. We had many more openings. We just couldn't score. And this sort of attests to what you were saying before about this game could have gone on for another 2 hours and we wouldn't have scored. And that was a mixture of sort of poor finishing. I'm thinking of the Forest one where he has a chance to score and he hits it maybe not straight to keeper. Maybe it's a little bit unfair, but he should probably bury that. A mixture of poor finishing and then their keeper actually playing a bit of a blinder as well, most certainly in that second half. So quite a juxtaposition between the two halves. One where we didn't make anything happen and the second where we made plenty happen and just didn't profit from it. So that was really it. Look, we were definitely better, much better pace to our play. But, full credit to them for holding out.
Yep. So we've got some comments. Craigie White saying, looking forward to seeing Paolo and Luke in the midfield for the next game. These two will show hunger and intent. Smell the Glove saying, we had 2 speeds yesterday, dead slow and really slow. Heavy Vibes are saying, our players don't make a pass forwards if it's more than 20 yards. Yeah, it's a bit of a doozy, really.
Yeah.
But, and here we go, Smell the Glove saying, too many straight shots at the keeper. Yep.
Right. Have we served enough penance here? Can we get ripped into the hands now, please? This is getting difficult.
I have 2 more things to talk about quickly. Liam, not going to take long. You know I love some good shithousery in football, right? And even though it was against us, so it was frustrating, but it was also funny to me, was how obvious their bloke was running around, telling all the ball boys, slow things down, don't throw the ball in quick, that sort of thing. And the commentator, I don't know who it was, but as they're actually showing him running from one to the next on the sideline and on the end of the field, and then he's talking to him. It's like, we're not grassing on you, mate. But they're showing him on the game coverage doing it. I thought that was a pisser. That was actually fun. That was actually the only thing in that game that made me smile, was seeing that and just laughing because of how obvious it was.
Can you imagine if that was Rangers? They would have had the crayons out and the statement would have been done before the game even finished. You know?
And the other thing I wanted to talk about, and that's why I named the pod this, the state of that pitch was atrocious. Like, there's a saying down here in Australia, and I'm going to get the exact wording. I don't know the episode that, but I want to give you a meaning behind it, right? So I named the show Dry as a Dead Dingo's Donger. So in Australia, an example of something being as dry as a dead dingo's donger. So by the way, it's like if a dingo, so like one of our wild dogs, right? If it's out there and it's died, its dick is going to be like really dry because it's like in the hot sun, and that's what the dong is referring to. So it's basically saying it's as dry as a dead dingo's dick is the saying. And basically an example that I would kill for a cold drink because my throat's as dry as a dead dingo's donger.
To use a Scottish equivalent, drier than a witch's tit. There you go.
There you go. So that pitch was just absolutely atrocious. We had a bit of a chat where in our group chat, Dan was saying, I'm trying to figure out what sort of grass this is. And I said, it's just sand spray painted green in patches. It was pretty bad, but both teams were playing on it. I just wanted to, I thought it's a good opportunity to educate with some Aussie slang. So there you go.
Can confirm that is most certainly real Aussie slang too.
Didn't make it up.
Did not make it up. It's legit.
So what restaurant do I have to go to in order to sample this delicacy of the dead dingo's dong? Is there a...
You go to the same place you get that succulent Chinese lamb from, and you can get either served there, mate.
Democracy manifest, is it? Okay, I see where we're going.
So, Henrik McGlassen, drier than a Hun's tear duct. Fucking heavy vibes. Fucking hell.
Oh dear.
Oh, here we go. Maggie Thatcher commenting coming.
Oh.
Shit.
Never tell you guys the story about how I found out Thatcher had died.
No, you can tell us anyway.
Right, very quickly, right. So I was living in Osaka at the time, and I got a phone call from my dad, and he said, "Oh, son, you've got to hand it to that Maggie Thatcher." What? What do you mean? He said, "It's only been in hell 20 minutes, and she's already privatised 2 furnaces."
There we go. So, with that in mind, we'll move on So after the game, Brendan has said that the players have become complacent recently. That's me just covering it all up. So to me, it's pretty much been like that since the Bayern Munich knocked us out of the Champions League. Like after that, we've just been like dead on our feet. We've just looked rubbish. So what do you think the main reason is for this, Shane? And we'll get into the main culprits, the individual players in a minute, but what do you think the main reason for this is? Because to me, I'm confused by it because I thought, okay, we're playing 2 games a week for 4 months straight. We suddenly get to 1 game a week. Players are going to get a chance to rest, recover. They're going to be full of beans, ready to play, and it's just not happening. So what do you think is the main reason?
I'm not sure. I definitely agree that since the Bayern Munich result, it definitely feels like kind of the air's been let out of the bubble, maybe.
But even before that, Shane, it was a little that way. Like we beat RB Leipzig, and then it was dead for like a month, and then we had another good result, and then it dropped off a bit, and then we had the Bayern thing, and it's just been all downhill since then.
we seem to pick. We had a little bit of a lull. Most certainly, this calendar year has been a problem overall. We seem to have a little bit of a lull just after Christmas, almost righted the ship again, and then post the Bayern music, it feels like there's been a bit more of a dip. And I'm not really sure what I put it down to. In all honesty, complacency is probably the only thing I can lean on, which is for a long time now, it has felt like the league has been an inevitability, that we've got it sewn up. And maybe with the fact that we've only got one game a week and Champions League is over, maybe that has led the squad and those in the squad to kind of just take it a bit easier and maybe not go full pelt. I can only really think of that. I don't think they've gone down from multiple games a week to one. So you'd like to think that we're not looking at fatigue or anything like that. I don't subscribe to the unrest or squad alienation or anything like that. I just think it's a team that's maybe just a playing squad that's kind of just resting on its laurels a bit, maybe thinking they can get it done by going in second gear. That's pretty much it, really.
The thing I'm going to jump on before going to you here, Liam, is it's one of them for me where I look at it and go, we never really have this opportunity where we could play well in Europe and we have a long run and we play a lot of games, and then our squad is built for that competition. And we've been talking about it on the pod. It's always been like, oh, we really need to improve our team for European quality. But then you look at our team, Rio Hatade plays heaps better in Europe. Kun plays better in Europe. Engel seems to play better in Europe. And I could go on and on and on with about for another 3 or 4 players, right? I'm just going those 3 to start with. But the thing I look at is we've got a team built for Europe and what we did. And we did well in the Champions League, right? But we've always said, if we build our team for the Champions League, the domestic league will take care of itself. And that's actually happening. We're still 13 points ahead. We're still on track for a treble, right? So you put all that together and it makes sense. But is this the other side of that we've been talking about? Oh, if we build a team for Europe, the league will take care of itself. Well, if the league's going to take care of itself, are you going to be dropping points every now and then? Is that the other side of it, Liam? What's your thoughts?
I'm going to ask the awkward question here. Do we have the same problem as the Huns? Because they are like a different team when they play in Europe. You know, as fun as it has been watching them fall under ours spectacularly domestically, European football, they're doing very well. You know, I would not put it past them to beat Bilbao this week. I don't think they will, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. They just seem to have this knack of being ranked rotten most of the time, but somehow finding it when they play Celtic or when they play in Europe, because playing against Celtic is essentially a European game for them in terms of the level. And that's the only time they ever seem to really perform. Do we have that same, I don't know if it's a mental problem, I don't know if it's a motivational problem, but it does seem to me there's a similarity there. They can get up for European games, as can our players, but domestically we struggle. And the difference is we managed to build up a big enough lead before both teams apparently mentally chucked it.
What do you think, Shane? I'll throw
I
to you.
don't know. I don't know. I think it's a really interesting point and one that's definitely worth unpacking a little bit. I'd still probably lean on the complacency side of things, but it was just interesting hearing Liam talk about Rangers then and what I was sort of running through my mind, and you could probably see the cogs moving as if you're watching on screen. I was thinking about all the opportunity. We've poked a lot of fun at them, particularly this calendar year and some of the poor results we've had. But how many times have they had a poor result and then the corresponding fixture in our list we haven't actually profited from? And I think of yesterday, for example, and I think back to the Hibs game and so forth, where they've had a poor result and we all poke fun at them, but then when it actually comes to our turn, we turn up a pretty poor performance as well. So that was where my mind was drawn. I don't think necessarily it's the same thing. Maybe with the whole proviso of building a Champions League squad maybe doesn't necessarily translate to domestic success. maybe that's just something we have to think about, that maybe if we think that we've got a squad good enough for Champions League, that for some reason it may not translate to domestic success. I don't know. I just think it's complacency. I just can't remember the last time we've had the league sewn up so comfortably by this point of the season. And I think that to me is sort of the number one factor I keep coming back to here.
Yeah, so on that, Shane, like the whole European build a team for the Champions League, that's great, but that doesn't prepare us for going to play against Atalanta in Italy and us playing defensive, and then coming back to Scotland and then having a go against. So the levels are the team that just won the Europa League is now in the Champions League. We're playing them away from home. We get a 0-0 draw, so we pick up a great point away from home to then come back here and then with the exact same team of players, then for us have to go from playing super defensive to having to come out and play against a team with a low block and 10 players behind the ball or 9 players behind the ball. It can be an adjustment. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is here, but on that regard, but I do think that we need to wake ourselves up basically. Like, I don't think it's got anything to do particularly with us being too similar to Rangers in terms of the results and how it's gone. But on that, it was mentioned when last 2 times when they dropped points, we haven't done anything. You see online, Rangers drop points, and we all laugh at them for a day, and then we play the next day, and we also lose, but we lose by 1 less goal. So, and people go, "Oh, we both lost, but we still improved our situation because of goal difference." And it's like, we won both of them, we'd already be the champions. There you go.
Yeah.
Your
So
point is very interesting about, sorry to cut you off, about sort of the Champions League squad though, and sort of talking about the example of like Atalanta. But even if you have a squad where you go and you play, Bayern Munich away, and then you come back and on the weekend, for example, let's just say you're playing at Livy away, right? And you go from that incredible atmosphere, that awesome pitch, to playing on the plastic. It is, I'm not trying to necessarily make excuses. I'm just trying to actually put in the picture of what could be actually the cause of the differences and why the performances can drag. Because we've seen in here in Australia as well, teams that go into continental competitions that actually punch above their weight while their league performances suffer. And the easiest comparison I can think of goes back about 10 years now, was Western Sydney, who actually won the Asian Champions League and with their squad, and they outperformed, did an incredible job. But by the same token, they finished last in the domestic season, and they had their worst season on record whilst they were actually winning this trophy. So sometimes, as I was sort of saying before, actually having a squad conducive to success in European competitions or in continental competitions doesn't necessarily translate to domestic success as much as we think it should.
on that as well, Shane, a perfect example in Scottish football was Hearts this season. You have a look at them. When they were playing in Europe early on in the piece, they were struggling. They were way down the bottom. They're up to 6th spot now. They're what are they? A point clear of, if the split happened today, they'd be a top 6 team. So you look at it with squad management and that they know they're not going to do well there, but they were overstretched early on. Now they're able to focus and do well in Scotland. You look at Rangers, well, they're just always somehow, they're like a fart in an elevator. They just don't go away in European games. They just hang in there and hang in there and hang in there. And eventually shit happens, and they do well. But the thing for us is, like, we build our team, and yeah, if you're playing in front of 80,000 people in Dortmund, you're playing in front of 60,000 people or whatever it is at Allianz Arena over against Bayern. I don't even know if I got the numbers. It's probably bigger. You're playing at Parkhead in Champions League nights, and then you've got to go up to play away at Ross County in front of 1,000 people, 2,000 people, in where it's almost snowing. I can understand like the physical side of it, but mentally trying to switch that on and be like, okay, I have to focus the same level here as I did in that environment. I remember when I used to play basketball at a decent level, sometimes playing in front of the big crowd in a big environment was easier than playing against a small team in front of 200 people. Because if there's 200 people there, your mind can wander. When there's that many people there, you've got to focus that hard to figure out what your teammate's doing, overplay the noise, all that sort of stuff, that it's just like the focus is there. So it's easier.
I think just if I can jump in one more time just on the complacency side of things, I'll try and be as quick as possible. We've also got to take into account a couple of the teams that we've played, right? So if I'm very much leaning on the complacency, we've wrapped up the league, they're not firing on all cylinders because of that. You look at the teams we've played and we've lost to recently. So we lose to St Johnstone, who are fighting for survival. They're fighting for their premiership lives, right? So they're going to come out and do whatever they can to try and jag a point, if not all three. We lost to a very resurgent Hibs, who are now third in the table, right? And they've been on fire. And as you pointed out before, the form team of the competition, this just prior to the start of this calendar year, going back all the way to December. So, and then as Liam said, when Rangers play us, it's like a European fixture for them. So you've got that mixture of we've wrapped up the league, probably not firing all cylinders, and three teams that are literally well and truly up for it. Does that mean that it's an excuse for the poor performances? No, but it's just a bit of context.
On that, Shane, it's pretty simple. We're 13 points clear, and most weeks we don't get out of second gear in the league. Second, third gear tops if we have to. We play St Johnstone on the weekend. They're in fourth, fifth gear. Absolutely just like grind, 8,000 RPM, no gears to change into, just trying to double clutch to get every little bit of power they can out of their car. And they're redlining the thing, and they got the win. So, and there we are just chucking it in second gear, cruising around the supermarket car park.
I'm going to play Gran Turismo after this.
Do it for your video channel, Liam.
Drive around the Sainsbury's car park.
Just to go back to something you said before, Jared, I farted in an elevator once, and it was wrong on so many levels.
So, we'd talk about the main culprits. Like, I'll rattle off the ones I'm seeing everywhere. The people are talking about the most are Kun, Rio, Trusty, Schlupp. They're the four that have been copping it the most out of everyone. I look at this going, Kun has dropped off a lot. And I look at it when Jota came in. I'm not saying that Jota's the reason, but when you had Kyogo and Ida in the middle, Maeda on the wing as the work rate winger, all the trickery and all the time you wanted to beat a man, and that it went to Kun's side. Teams also know that he likes to 80, 90% of the time cut back onto his left foot and come inside, look for a shot or look for a pass. He doesn't want to beat you on the outside. So teams are doubling up on that now. So he needs to learn to adjust his game and evolve his game and go outside, beat a man, get a normal cross in. Then he's suddenly a two-prong winger. He can invert, but he can also play traditional wing play, and it'll open him up. So Kun's getting caught out that way. Schlupp, we all thought he was the guy coming in, the Greg Taylor replacement. He's big, he's physical, he's strong, but he's looked lightweight the last couple of games. Like, I don't know. He just doesn't look like himself. Then you got Trusty. Well, it doesn't matter who we put alongside Carter Vickers, whether it's Scales, whether it's Trusty, whether it's Naroski's. People are always slagging them out. It's never CCV who's making the mistakes, but my opinion, this season, the last 3 or 4 months in particular, CCV hasn't looked that great this season.
He's flying under the radar.
Yeah. So realistically, there's a few main culprits. Is there anyone else you guys think should be getting looked at here?
I think our entire midfield. The game just passes us by too often. It's not just the physicality is the thing that gets talked about the most, because that was very evident, particularly against the Huns, right? The one thing they did really well was dominate the midfield, right? And we were too passive. But for me, Hatate can't fault his effort. But that guy really needs a goal. He needs a goal just to kind of get his momentum going again. He's a guy who's trying everything right now and it's not working, right? Kuhn, on the other hand, I think is a guy who's mentally checked out, right? I don't think any professional footballer deliberately goes out to not try. But as we saw with Matt O'Reilly at points last season, when you've got the unsettled idea of you maybe getting transferred, rumours are there was something supposed to happen in January with Kuhn and it didn't. It can affect you even on a subconscious level. And I see that with Kuhn. That's a guy whose head is not in the game right now. And it's not necessarily his fault. That's just the way it is. With Hatate, I see a guy who's trying, but it isn't working right now. Engels, I see a player who is too passive, who maybe it's youth, maybe it's inexperience. He needs to step up and dominate the game more. We know he's got the class. We know he's got the ability. He needs to be taking control of that midfield more. Callum McGregor's doing everything he can, but he's just one man. And he is also being drawn into these areas where other players are not pulling their weight, and he's trying to kind of run the whole thing. And, he couldn't do that when he was in his prime, and he's not going to do it now when he's in his 30s. It's just, it's not fair to him. But yeah, I think Carter Vickers is the one that worries me, because again, a bit like Kuhn, is he playing with a guy who's got his head halfway out the door already? I'm beginning to wonder. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm beginning to wonder.
I want to jump on the midfield there, Liam, because I set it up for you guys, and you jumped on exactly where I was going to go with it if you didn't. And for me, Hatate is doing his thing, right? But Heavy Vibes is saying here, Kelmack and Engels need help in the mid. And the thing for me is, this is going to sound a little controversial here. Engels needs to know what his actual position is. The fact that he floats around, is he a 6? Is he an 8? Is he going to play forward as a 10 sometimes? Is he going to play as one of 2 8s where he has to step forward? And he's all over the place. He's a young guy, but the thing is, he's got the skill, but what is he? Is he a 6 or an 8? What are we going to play him? What are we going to develop him as? I think that's his biggest issue, because he can go 2 or 3 games where he's got to play as a 6, and he does well. And there was a run of games where he was man of the match, like 4 or 5 games in a row before Christmas. Right? So, or whenever Kelmack was out. So, realistically, and he was playing consistently in the 6. Or whatever. Or Bernardo was in the 6, I can't remember, but he got man of the match. So the thing is, what is Engels' correct position? And where are we going to get the best out of him in this squad? On top of that, you mentioned Kelmack, and there's a comment here. Henrik McGlasson is saying, we thought Kelmack was the answer to all our problems.
Yeah, spot
I
on.
don't want to sound like a prick here, but this is the controversial part. I didn't. I think Kelmack's got to that point where his legs are starting to go. To play as a 6, his legs are going. Like when Brendan was here last time, you had Bruni next to him whose legs were starting to go. And then he had Kelmack next to him to do his running for him. We can't be expecting Kelmack to play 60 games a season and have to run and cover it right back 1 minute, left back the next, come and drop in between your 2 centre-backs when we're cycling the ball and moving it from side to side. Try and make those late runs to the top of the box to get shots in. He needs help.
We should never have sold Iwata. He was the perfect Kelmack stand-in.
Exactly. And that would have also, in turn, cleared it up and gone, okay, Kelmack plays a 6 when he is not. Iwata plays a 6, which means Engels is purely an 8. And that sets up him so he knows, this is my role in this team. This is what I've got to do every single week. And that fixes the 2 issues we've got in the middle. But that's how I see it. I love Kelmack to death. Absolutely unbelievable player. One of the best Celtic players I've seen in my lifetime in terms of what he's done. And he covers every grade of blade of grass that he can. But I think his legs are going. Like he's not able to play 60 games a season. He's probably, an ideal world for him would be 45 games a season. And then have someone else play those other 15 odd games for him.
This is something that worries me, sorry, just to jump in there, because people are already talking about when Kieran Tierney comes back next season, we're going to have to manage him. So we need another left back who can play 15 to 20 games a season when Tierney's going to be out, right? It's going to be the same with Kelmack. We are going to need another player who can step in and play 15 to 20 games domestically, possibly in Europe as well, when Calmac is not fit. Because, like you say, he cannot continue that 50, 60 games a season. It's just not feasible. And it gets less feasible the older he gets. Yeah, I mean, Birmingham would probably want funny money to get Iwata back now because he's having a great season there. But
Andrew
yeah,
just
thank you,
said that.
Andrew. That's exactly what. Aye. So I think unfortunately that ship has sailed. Of all the former Celts being linked with a return, nobody's talking about Iwata because I think that is one that would not happen. But we need that type of player, and we need it soon because you need a guy who's going to come in, ideally come in for pre-season, bed in, get to know his role. Because that's the problem with Engels. We signed him too late. We didn't sign Engels until right near the end of the window. So he hasn't had a pre-season. He doesn't fully understand his role, like you say, Jared. And that is telling.
And it's the same with Ida. It's the exact same. Didn't do a full preseason.
Yeah.
Andrew
And
Galea
again,
is
that
saying
was dithering.
Shane's going to hate me because I mentioned him last week. But there's your answer. From the A-League, Ryan Teague. I'd happily have him leave Victory to go to Celtic. He'd do perfect for us.
Mm-hmm.
I've also said, you want a backup for Jota? There's Valupale's role for you.
Yeah, I'm as long as they're going from Victory to Celtic, it lessens the pain. I want to pick up on what you guys were talking about Calmac and the fact he's getting older and his legs are going to go, and I agree, and I think we're going to struggle to see him play as many games as he has done for us over the last however many seasons, right? However, and this is where the Tierney signing becomes really important for me because I've been all on board about giving Calmac a bit of a break and having him not play domestic fixtures and things like that. Until the last derby, and when we saw the absolute complete lack of leadership on the pitch without him, that frightened me to the point of going, I cannot have him out of the matchday squad unless we've got another leader on that pitch. And the Tierney signing becomes really important, but we probably need others to step up as well. And I think that dearth in leadership probably contributes to Calmac maybe playing a little bit more than maybe he should be necessarily. So I just wanted to sort of say, yeah, I'm all on board for maybe him not playing as many games, but I'm really concerned about the leadership void it leaves in regards to our squad. I think you guys have pretty much touched on all the key players in terms of their form dip. I'm going to throw a different name in a second. Kun, for me, is a barometer. I think Kun's performance drop-off almost parallels our poor performance drop-offs as a squad as a whole. I think if you look back...
The timeline matches up, definitely.
Yeah, if you look back to when he was dominating, we were dominating. We were playing our best football. And since we've started to, fall away a little bit and not play at that sort of high-octane level that we were before, he's very much been at the same. So he's a barometer for our performances. And yesterday he was really, really poor in that first 45 before he got hooked. No surprise, as an overall squad, we were really poor. But a name that you didn't mention, and I'm going to avoid the midfield, and I'm going to go to right back, and I think it links into the Kun being poor. I don't think AJ has had anywhere near the same level of season we've seen from him in the past. And in particular, the last month and a little bit, I feel like he's been really lacking. And I think it ties in with his winger partner, which he, as we mentioned on the pod a lot of times during the season, linked up with so well, getting to the byline, that little bit of interplay. I'm not saying Kun necessarily is his poor performances have led to AJ being poor, but I think there's definitely a link between those two. And when one's not firing, I feel like the other isn't at the same level.
I think AJ has a reasonable excuse, Shane, in that he played all last season for us, then played the whole Copa America, and then came back in and straight into a whole nother season, didn't really get a break. So
no excuses.
And there's no winter break this year either for him, so he's had no chance really. But yeah, I just think he's played a lot of football as well. So yeah, there's something going on. But smell the glove. We mentioned about Teague before he goes. After Tilio and Arzani, I'm a bit sceptical about A-League players, sadly, but you guys will know a lot more on that. Okay, Tilio, 100% agree. Should have done better than he is. Shut the bed, got homesick, had some family stuff, and he's not coming back. Arzani, that's a bit harsh considering he came over off the back of a World Cup, did an injury in training, got back into it, made his debut, 15 minutes in, tore his ACL, and was out for 18 months off the back of that. So that's a bit harsh, but putting him in the same basket there. But I get your point.
Yeah, Arzani's another Ideguchi, a great player in his country's league, but we'll never know how good a player he would have been for Celtic because injury just completely torpedoed any chance he had.
And I can absolutely agree. Ryan Teague would be a wonderful signing and acquisition, and he's a level-headed guy who works his absolute socks off, the kind of guy that you can actually invest in and know that he's going to give it his all. And you're not going to have a situation where he gets homesick or spits a dummy. He's going to work hard. He's going to work in the background. He's going to do everything he can to contribute in any way, shape, or form. He is absolutely worth the punt if they want to take a chance on another A-League player.
He's definitely a Brendan Rodgers type too.
Yep.
Do you know, right, see, since you're talking A-League players, right, I'm going to throw one at you that is a J-League player I've been watching that I think Celtic should go for. There's a guy called Kota Takai who made his international debut a couple of weeks ago for Japan. 20 years old, primarily plays as a centre-back, but can also play defensive mid. He is, I think, 6'2", very physically imposing, loves a hard tackle.
Get him in. You got me with loves a hard tackle.
Yeah.
Need a hard bastard in there. Get him in.
Yeah. He is exactly what Celtic were missing yesterday. Genuinely. I mean, he's only 20 years old, so you would need an experienced head alongside him, but the guy has all the qualities, and he's already getting a game for Japan and he's only 20. That says a lot. I would definitely look at that guy.
The old "you had me at hello" sort of saying, you had me at 6'2" and a hard bastard. So, off the back of that, like, what we need to do, how do you think we will action this during the off season with the players we've got to do? Like, there's a lot of talk. People need to move on. Talk online about us selling and replacing 3 or 4 major players, like the ones we've rattled on already. There's also some people saying we need to do something drastic. Let Rodgers walk in the summer and get a new manager. Someone early on in the show said that bringing Kettle Knutson from Bodo Glimt, he's built that team up again. That's the sort of guy we should be targeting. Someone without Celtic links again, who can build, who's a program builder and can get it done. But if Rodgers was to move on, I don't want him to. I want us to extend him, okay? But Rodgers tends to have a 3 or 4 year window where he has to churn and rebuild his teams. So what do you think, Liam, is the best tack here? Are we going to sell 3 or 4 players, replace them, and go again? What are your thoughts?
Whatever we need to do it quickly, right? By, if the Scottish Cup finals run about the 25th of May, right? By no later than the 2nd or 3rd week of June, I want us to know, is Rodgers extending his contract or not? And if he's not, succession planning has to begin. Because in that case, you need a rebuild. If Rodgers commits for another couple of years, then it's a case of building on what we already have. And I think that's got to get through to the players just now as well. Complacency is a huge part of it. I agree with what Shane said. But also, are you going to fully commit to a team if you know the manager might not fully be committed to the team? I think getting Rodgers tied down, I would do that even before you get Maeda tied up on an extension. I think it's more important to know what the manager is doing. Because if he's not staying beyond next year, I'd move him out in the summer and get someone else in who is here for the long term. Because it's going to, if you do a rebuild now or do a rebuild in a year's time, it's still going to be the same rebuild. You might as well get ahead of the game.
Who knows? You might get someone like Ange available in the summer again. I'm joking, everyone, by the way. Don't think just because I'm an Aussie I'm saying that.
Like I said this to you guys in the group the other day, and I'll say it here now. Ange needs to get out of Spurs, right? The physical toll that job is taking on him is... They don't deserve a manager of his class, right? Those shower of entitled shite that other Spurs support do not deserve a guy like Ange. He
Shane will be able
deserves
to
to get
agree.
out of there and get on to something better.
Shane will understand on this. Remember when he was Socceroos manager, we qualified for the World Cup, how beat, sickly, defeated he looked, and he needed to get out of there, and he went to Japan, right?
Yep.
And that's what he needs. That's what he's looking like at Tottenham. He's got a very similar situation going on. I'm actually worried for his health.
It's genuinely sad that he's actually experienced that again, because the Socceroos job put him through the absolute ringer with some of the absolute horrible people that run that place and put the pressure on him within Football Australia at the time. It's really sad to see sort of going through that experience again.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly bring up some comments here. So Heavy Vibes is saying, don't build your hopes up for the summer, know your history.
Aye, I mean, he's right.
Henrik Larson, so many are at the end of their natural cycle at Celtic. Yeah, 3-4 seasons. Yep. There's a few there. Pegleg Lonigan saying, I heard the guy from Bodo Glimt turned down Ajax. Yeah, he did. So I don't think he'd come to us, but I'm just saying someone like that. McLaughlin saying, if the board want Rodgers to stay longer, they'll need to let him rebuild with serious cash. But then at the same point, this board will turn around and say, we let you spend $9.5 million on Eder, $11.5 million on Engels, and then they'll carry on. They'll find some stat to make it look like they weren't great. So they'll say you can't buy those players again. So Lowell and his minions can't wait till last week in August to buy players. And Henrik and Wilson Rodgers won't want to stay unless on a rolling 1-year contract. Brendan McCarthy saying, hail boys, we need to drop players who are not up for it. Please start Ralston, Bernardo, Yang and Forrest on Saturday.
Forrest and Bernardo, definitely. Aye.
Yep. And yeah, so whole bunch of Spurs bashing going on in the comments. I'm loving to see that. It's great. So what we'll do is...
sorry to interrupt, right? Talking about Spurs, did you see the thing on Twitter a few weeks ago? There was some Spurs player who apparently is dating an adult actress whose claim to fame was that she slept with, like, I think it was 100 guys in 24 hours. And the first reply was, imagine taking that home to your parents. Imagine the utter shame and humiliation of telling them you're dating a Spurs player.
Yeah. I saw that joke, Liam, from the other way around, where it was, imagine being the parent of her saying, oh yeah, we raised her well, she got a trainer and by 100 people, blah, 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 but she's dating a Spurs player. That's the most embarrassing thing in your life. Yeah. Yeah, so last thing I want to touch on before we go to give you a little bit of Hun sculpting time before we wrap it up here, Liam, is do you think it's time we adjusted our formation and playing style? So I think teams have worked us out and know how to beat us. You said that early on, Liam, about like teams now play the way the Huns did against us. And like a similar thing happened in Brendan's first stint at the club where teams knew how to beat us. And I think we're kind of that way. Do you think we need to change to a 3-5-2 to overwhelm midfield, put two together up the front? And because we've got plenty of centre backs, what do you think we need to do? Do we need to make some sort of change?
Yep, go 3-5-2, bring in Scales and play him at left centre back. Yes, that's because the thing is, both Johnson and either Taylor or Sloop can do the overlapping fullback thing, you know. So we've got that going down the wings. If it means we need to drop Kuhn, so be it, because he's not been good enough lately. Jota, we can manage. You know, he can come in when he has to and go out when we don't, you know.
I'd move Jota in, Liam.
Big Eder needs games and he needs goals, and partnering with Dyson might be the way to do it.
Have the big man, small man working together, but I'd actually consider playing Jota in a 10 if we went to that.
Aye, that could work as well. Yep.
Get him with his fast feet and ability in there where he can play anywhere across the front three. Put him in the 10 in a Rogic type role. And then behind that, you've got Engels and McGregor, or you've got Bernardo and McGregor, or whatever. It makes sense. And John Hutchison's saying, yeah, it's a no-brainer. Brendan Rodgers has to change. We need to make some changes. Like, it's too obvious what we're going to do. What are your thoughts, Shane?
I must admit, it's exciting to run it back with a 3-5-2 and hark back to the sort of Edouard and Griffiths days of the 1920 season with Eder and Dyson. I think that's really exciting. I do like it. I would probably say that at the very least, I'd like to see that if there's going to be a small change, that I would actually like to see us to, instead of having 2 8s, go with just a 10 and maybe have 2 6s again. Now, I know that doesn't sound very exciting, particularly from a domestic level, but I actually think it could reap some benefits. I miss the old days of having that one kind of midfielder that was kind of that point of attack, just playing just in behind the striker, that one focal attacking midfielder, that number 10 role. Sometimes I feel like the 8s don't link up very well, get in their way, create a little bit of confusion with each other, and I don't think you get that a lot with 10. And I think having the double pivot also helps that situation where we're talking about Calmac not having the legs. Well, you have a partner with him, be strict on the positioning. I think that can help with that. I definitely want to see it from Europe going forward. I really think we should go to a double pivot, particularly for our European games, but I'd like to see it domestically too.
Hey, if we've got 3 options, it's great. You've got the current one, which is the 4-3-3. If you've got the 4-2-3-1, great. If you've got a 3-5-2, great. Gives you multiple options, different looks. So that's the thing. Teams need to be able to play multiple styles and mix and match depending on what you're up against. So I'm all for that. So Liam, I'm throwing to you. You've got 2 minutes of some just unadulterated Hun scalping. Go.
Oh, where do I start? There has been one team in Scotland who have been absolutely atrocious in the last couple of months. They've sacked their manager. They have they've conceded more than 30 goals. They've only scored 6 goals. They've lost, I think, 8 games. But somehow that team still found a way to win at Ibrox, and that's Queen's Park. And they've won more games at Ibrox than Rangers have in that time. So, perspective.
How is it, everyone, that if anyone can make Hun scalping their official full-time job, it's Liam. I love it. It's great. It's the best job. Like, I want to see your business card one day. Liam Carrigan, Hun scalper extraordinaire. Something like that.
Occasional bigot, full-time Hun scalper. Yep, that's me.
Something like that. Whatever your LinkedIn bio would be for your role, that would be perfect.
Just a picture of me kicking a zombie up the arse.
I'm sure you could AI generate something like that too, Liam.
Be like the Father Ted one with Bishop Brennan, just the zombie as I'm just volleying him right up the arse.
All right. So what we'll do to finish the show, normally we'll have our final thoughts. So do you boys want to do a hot take? We'll do a hot take instead of a final thought this week. All right. Okay. So our hot takes usually can be about anything. We can plug anything, bad mouth anything, do whatever. So you guys want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go in. I'll
go for it.
I'll go for it. Manager swap. Ange to Celtic, Brendan to Tottenham.
Ooh, okay.
Not gonna complain about that.
Well, I don't really have a hot take, but I'll leave you with a final thought. A friend of mine works in London, and he told me an interesting story the other day. He said he get in a taxi, and he says, "Take me to Waterloo, please." And the driver said, "The station." He says, "I'm a bit fucking late for the battle, mate." Anyway.
Yeah, my hot take's pretty simple. It can also be a final thought. It covers both. So we've had an election called down here in Australia, and the funniest thing was there was a newsreader. I can't remember what channel it was, but I saw it. But it was some, I don't know if they're Japanese or Korean or something like that, and they tried to say that there's an election coming up, and ended up saying erection coming up, Australian erection coming up in May, and I'm just like, how good is that? That's newsworthy. Gotta love it.
One of the good things about not being a teacher anymore, every 4 years I don't have to answer awkward questions about my country's massive erection.
Erection. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
well.
enjoyed the show, and yeah, we'll see you later in the week.